Who are you becoming while you chase money in silence, and is the person you are today capable of holding the income you say you want tomorrow? Most people never ask that question, and that is why online earning feels like a battlefield to them instead of a system. They run after tactics with a restless mind, scrolling, clicking, starting, quitting, chasing momentum without ever building gravity. But money, especially in the digital world, does not obey noise. It obeys clarity. It obeys restraint. It obeys the invisible laws of focus and emotional control. Before a single dollar becomes consistent, the mind must become still enough to see what actually compounds and disciplined enough to repeat it long after excitement dies. Online income is not a miracle, it is a mirror. It reflects the way you think when no one is watching, the way you respond to boredom, the way you treat time when results are delayed. The internet rewards those who can sit with uncertainty without flinching. It tests your nervous system before it ever tests your skills. Most people fail not because the model was wrong, but because their inner world was chaotic. They could not hold a simple process without sabotaging it with impatience, comparison, or emotional hunger for validation. The calm mind understands something the desperate mind never will. Speed is not power, control is power. In the online economy, where leverage exists in code, content, systems, and automation, the loudest effort often produces the weakest outcome. The ones who quietly build real income learn to move like architects, not gamblers. They choose a direction, simplify it until it is executable, and then repeat it with surgical consistency. They do not need to feel motivated, they are committed. Motivation fluctuates, commitment stabilizes. There is a metaphysical truth hidden inside every sustainable online business. What you repeatedly focus on grows, not just externally, but internally. When your attention is scattered across 10 ideas, 10 platforms, 10 fantasies of fast money, you are fragmenting your own power. But when you narrow your focus to one system, one skill, one market, and you bring emotional neutrality to the process, something shifts. Time begins to work for you instead of against you. Small actions start stacking invisibly. Momentum forms beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. This is why calm people win online. They are not emotionally attached to daily results. They understand delay. They understand compounding. They understand that income lags behind identity. First, you become the operator who shows up regardless of mood. Then the system starts responding. Online earning is less about intelligence and more about nervous system regulation. Can you execute when nothing is happening? Can you publish when no one is watching? Can you refine when the numbers are flat? These moments are where wealth is decided. The ancient art of self-control was never about suppression, it was about direction. Desire without discipline leaks energy. Discipline without vision becomes lifeless. The successful online builder holds both. They have a clear internal picture of the life they are building toward, and they restrain themselves from impulsive actions that do not serve that picture. They do not chase trends unless the trend aligns with their long-term structure. They do not pivot emotionally, they pivot strategically. Manifestation, when stripped of fantasy, is simply alignment between thought, behavior, and patience. You cannot visualize your way out of inconsistency. The internet does not reward belief alone. It rewards belief expressed through repeated action over time. When your internal dialogue is calm and your external behavior is disciplined, reality has no choice but to reorganize. Algorithms favor consistency, markets favor reliability, audiences favor trust, and trust is built when your presence is stable, not frantic. Most people want online income to save them from discomfort. The calm builder uses discomfort as training. They allow boredom to sharpen focus. They allow silence to deepen clarity. They allow slow growth to build resilience. While others burn out chasing spikes, they quietly increase their capacity. They understand that emotional detachment is not coldness, it is precision. It allows you to see data clearly, make rational decisions, and improve without ego. The psychology of success online is ruthless in its honesty. You cannot fake discipline for long. You cannot outsource responsibility. You cannot escape yourself with tools. Every funnel, every video, every product is an extension of the person operating it. When the inner world is fragmented, the business reflects that fragmentation. When the inner world is ordered, the business becomes inevitable. There is a moment in every serious journey where excitement fades and only structure remains. This is where most quit, but this is also where calm minds separate themselves from the crowd. They do not ask if it feels good, they ask if it compounds. They do not ask if it is fast, they ask if it is sustainable. They build with the patience of someone who understands that real freedom is delayed gratification executed flawlessly. Online income is not about escaping work, it is about choosing the right work and doing it with devotion. When you master yourself, the digital world becomes a field of leverage instead of confusion. When you control your attention, you control your income. When you align your identity with long-term execution, money stops feeling elusive and starts feeling mechanical, predictable, earned. This is only the beginning of the system, not the external one, but the internal one, the one that determines whether you will be another restless participant or a quiet operator who builds something that lasts. The next layer goes deeper into vision, identity, and the silent laws that govern exponential growth in a noisy world. Stay with this feeling, because what you are sensing right now is the threshold most people never cross, the place where ambition stops shouting and starts listening, the place where you realize that earning online is not about adding more tactics, but about subtracting noise. When the mind becomes quiet enough, patterns reveal themselves. You begin to see why certain people succeed again and again in different markets, while others fail even with perfect information. The difference is never access, it is posture. A calm mind does not react to the market, it studies it. It does not panic when numbers dip, it observes. It does not celebrate spikes, it normalizes them. This emotional neutrality is not weakness, it is leverage. In finance and online earning, emotions distort timing, execution, and judgment. Fear makes you quit early, greed makes you overextend, impatience makes you abandon what was about to work. The disciplined operator learns to feel these impulses without obeying them. That is self-mastery in practice, not theory. There is a silent agreement between the internet and those who respect its laws. Give consistent value and it gives reach. Build trust slowly and it gives loyalty. Create systems instead of chasing moments and it gives scale. But it demands something in return that most are unwilling to give. Time without reassurance. You must act without applause. You must build without proof. You must invest effort before identity catches up. This is where manifestation becomes real, not as wishful thinking, but as unwavering alignment between intention and repetition. Vision is the anchor here. Without it, discipline feels like punishment. With it, discipline feels like devotion. The successful online builder carries a clear internal image of the future they are constructing, not vague dreams, but a precise emotional and practical reality. The freedom of controlled time, the stability of predictable income, the dignity of not being dependent on chaos. This vision pulls them forward on days when motivation disappears. It gives meaning to monotony. Belief in this context is not blind faith, it is earned confidence built through keeping promises to yourself. Every day you show up when it would be easier not to, belief hardens. Every time you execute despite doubt, identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to make money online and start seeing yourself as someone who builds systems. That identity change is subtle, but it changes everything. Decisions become cleaner, distractions lose power, progress accelerates without force.
The ancient disciplines understood this long before the digital age. Control the inner world and the outer world follows. Lose control internally, and no external opportunity will save you. Online earning magnifies this truth because leverage amplifies both order and chaos. A focused individual can reach millions, a scattered one can burn years with nothing to show. The platform does not care about your intention, it responds to your consistency. Desire must be refined, not indulged. Raw desire seeks fast relief. Refined desire accepts delay for magnitude. This is why calm minds win. They are not seduced by urgency. They understand that urgency is often a signal of weak structure. They slow down to speed up. They build foundations that make income boring, repeatable, and reliable. When money becomes boring, freedom begins. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing your actions are aligned with long-term
outcomes. You stop checking numbers obsessively. You stop comparing yourself to others. You trust the process because you understand it. This trust is not naive, it is informed. It comes from seeing cause and effect over time, from watching effort turn into assets, from witnessing how small daily outputs become massive cumulative results. As you move deeper into this mindset, something important happens. You stop asking, "How can I make money online?" and start asking, "What kind of person consistently produces value?" That question changes everything. Skills improve naturally. Opportunities appear organically. Collaboration replaces competition. The game shifts from survival to mastery. And understand this clearly. Calm does not mean passive. Stillness does not mean inactivity. The calm mind is intensely active, but it is selective. It knows where to apply force and where to withhold it. It knows when to push and when to wait. This discernment is what separates builders from burners. It allows you to endure long enough for compounding to reveal itself. You are not here to consume motivation. You are here to rewire your relationship with effort, time, and reward. The path you are stepping onto is quieter than you expected and far more powerful than you imagined. This is only the opening movement, the foundation. What comes next is the deep restructuring of identity, where online earning stops being something you chase and starts being something you command. As this understanding settles, you begin to notice how different your posture toward money becomes. You no longer see income as something to grab, but something to cultivate, like a landscape that responds to care, not force. Online earning rewards those who treat it as an ecosystem rather than a hunt. You plant ideas, you water systems, you prune distractions, and you allow time to do what time has always done best: multiply what is nurtured consistently. The mind that masters this stops arguing with reality. It stops asking why results aren't immediate and starts asking whether today's actions are aligned with tomorrow's outcomes. This shift is subtle, almost invisible to others, but internally it feels like gravity locking into place. You are no longer floating between ideas, you are grounded. When distractions arise, they pass through you instead of pulling you away. When doubt appears, it is acknowledged, not obeyed. This is where emotional detachment becomes a form of freedom, not indifference, but clarity. You care deeply about the work, but you are no longer emotionally dependent on each result. This detachment sharpens judgment. You can cut what doesn't work without ego. You can double down on what does without fear. You can learn without self-attack. In finance and online business, this emotional neutrality is rare, and that rarity is precisely why it is valuable. The internet amplifies whatever you bring into it. If you bring chaos, it multiplies chaos. If you bring order, it multiplies order. Algorithms are not mysterious forces, they are mirrors of behavior. They reward predictability, clarity, and value delivered over time. The calm builder understands this intuitively. They do not chase virality,
They build reliability. They do not aim for spikes, they aim for stability, and stability over time becomes scale. There is a quiet spiritual discipline in showing up every day without drama, in executing the same core actions when no one is praising you, in trusting an internal compass rather than external validation. This discipline trains the nervous system to remain steady under uncertainty, and uncertainty is the natural environment of online earning. Markets shift, platforms evolve, attention moves. Only the internally stable remain effective through change. Inner strength is not loud. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself through consistency, through the ability to keep promises to yourself when no one else is watching. Each fulfilled promise reinforces self-trust, and self-trust is the backbone of long-term success. Without it, you constantly second-guess. With it, decisions become faster, cleaner, and more decisive. You begin to realize that the real work was never external. Tools change, platforms rise and fall, strategies evolve, but the operator remains. When the operator is disciplined, adaptable, and calm, they can rebuild income again and again. This is why some people lose everything and return stronger, while others collapse after their first setback. The difference is internal architecture. Vision deepens here. It becomes less about money and more about sovereignty. Control over time, control over attention, control over creative output. Money becomes a means, not an obsession. And paradoxically, when money stops being the emotional center, it starts flowing more predictably. Desperation repels opportunity. Clarity attracts it. The psychology of success reveals itself fully at this stage. You understand that boredom is not an enemy, it is a gatekeeper. Those who cannot tolerate boredom will never reach compounding. They will always abandon the process right before it accelerates. The calm mind stays, it refines, it repeats. It improves by small margins that look insignificant in isolation and insurmountable over time. This is where belief transforms into knowing, not blind optimism, but grounded certainty. Certainty born from alignment, from doing the work, from seeing patterns, from experiencing the quiet accumulation of progress. You no longer need motivation videos, you have momentum. You no longer need reassurance, you have structure. And as this structure solidifies, something remarkable happens. The external world begins to respond differently. Opportunities appear that were invisible before. Conversations change. Your presence carries weight. Not because you are louder, but because you are centered. People trust centered individuals. Markets reward them. Systems respond to them. You are stepping into a different relationship with online earning now, one rooted in mastery rather than hope, in calm rather than chaos, in intention rather than impulse. This path does not promise excitement, it promises freedom. And freedom, earned through discipline, is far more powerful than any momentary thrill. What lies ahead is the deepening of this mastery, the point where inner discipline becomes external inevitability, where systems begin to work even when you step back, where income reflects not effort alone, but alignment. This is not the end of the journey. It is the point where the real transformation begins. At this stage, something subtle but irreversible takes hold inside you. You stop needing permission. You stop waiting for certainty. You stop asking the world to validate your direction before you move. This is not recklessness, it is grounded confidence. The kind that comes from understanding cause and effect deeply enough to trust yourself in silence. The kind that allows you to work when results are delayed and remain humble when results arrive. You begin to sense how much of online failure is rooted in emotional leakage. People exhaust themselves reacting to metrics instead of managing systems. They celebrate too early and despair too often. Their nervous system is constantly overstimulated, pulled between hope and fear. The calm mind steps out of this cycle. It treats numbers as information, not identity. Data becomes a tool, not a verdict. This alone creates a massive advantage. In finance, timing matters. In online earning, patience matters more. The ability to stay positioned long enough for timing to work in your favor is rare. Most abandon the field before probability has a chance to bend toward them. The calm operator stays, not passively, but attentively. They adjust without panic. They learn without self-blame. They improve without drama. Over time, this steadiness compounds into something that looks like luck from the outside. There is an ancient understanding that power grows when energy is conserved. Wasted motion weakens outcomes. The online world tempts you to constant activity, constant posting, constant reacting. But output without intention creates noise, not value. The disciplined builder chooses fewer actions with greater precision. They design their days around leverage, not exhaustion. They respect their cognitive energy as much as their financial capital. This respect changes how you work. You no longer multitask yourself into mediocrity. You create blocks of deep focus. You enter states of flow where time dissolves and quality rises. In these states, your work carries a different weight. Audiences feel it. Markets respond to it. Systems amplify it. Calmness becomes contagious. Trust builds naturally. You also begin to understand that self-mastery is not about control over the world, but control over reaction. The world will always be volatile. Platforms will change rules, markets will fluctuate, attention will shift. The calm mind accepts this as neutral reality, not personal
Injustice. This acceptance frees enormous mental bandwidth. Instead of resisting change, you adapt to it. Instead of fearing uncertainty, you plan around it. Desire becomes quieter but stronger. It no longer screams for immediate reward. It pulls you forward steadily. This refined desire fuels consistency without burnout. You work because it aligns with who you are becoming, not because you are chasing relief. This alignment creates endurance. Endurance creates mastery. Mastery creates freedom. The psychological transformation here is profound. You stop oscillating between overconfidence and self-doubt. You occupy a middle ground of focused realism. You know your strengths. You see your weaknesses. You work on both without emotional excess. This balance allows you to scale without losing yourself, to grow without fragmentation. Online earning at its highest level becomes an expression of inner order. Your systems reflect your thinking. Your content reflects your clarity. Your income reflects your consistency. When these are aligned, progress feels inevitable, not rushed, not forced, just steady. This is why calm minds quietly build massive online income, not because they are smarter, but because they are steadier. Not because they know more, but because they execute longer. Not because they escape fear, but because they do not let fear drive. As you continue forward, you are no longer chasing an outcome. You are embodying a process. And that process, when honored daily, leads somewhere most never reach. The place where effort becomes leverage, where time becomes an ally, and where income becomes a reflection of inner mastery rather than outer struggle. What comes next is the deeper integration of this identity, the moment when discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like who you are, where the line between work and self-development disappears, where success is no longer something you pursue, but something you allow to unfold through precision and restraint. As this identity integrates, the struggle you once associated with money begins to dissolve, not because challenges disappear, but because resistance does. You no longer fight the process, you cooperate with it. You understand that online earning is not a battle to be won, but a rhythm to be learned. Once you move in harmony with that rhythm, effort feels lighter, decisions feel clearer, and progress feels natural rather than forced.
You stop romanticizing chaos. You stop believing that suffering is proof of progress. Instead, you measure growth by stability, by how calm you remain when results fluctuate, by how consistently you execute when emotions try to interfere. This calm is not passive acceptance, it is active presence. You are fully engaged, but not emotionally hijacked. This distinction is everything. The mind becomes a strategic instrument rather than an emotional reactor. You plan from clarity, not fear. You act from intention, not impulse. When mistakes happen, you correct them without self-punishment. When success arrives, you absorb it without losing discipline. This emotional equilibrium allows you to scale without self-destruction, a fate that quietly claims many who grow too fast without inner structure. At this level, manifestation reveals its true nature. It is not about attracting outcomes through desire alone, but about becoming the kind of person whose daily behavior makes certain outcomes unavoidable. You manifest income by manifesting consistency. You manifest freedom by manifesting restraint. You manifest leverage by manifesting patience. Reality aligns not with what you want, but with what you repeatedly do. The digital world senses this alignment. Opportunities become cleaner. Collaborations feel natural. Decisions require less force. You are no longer chasing momentum. Momentum follows you. This is the quiet confidence of someone who understands the long game and is willing to play it fully. Time, once an enemy, becomes an ally. You stop rushing weeks and start stacking years. You think in seasons instead of moments. This long-range thinking changes how you build. You create assets instead of outputs, systems instead of tasks, foundations instead of spikes. Each decision is filtered through a simple internal question: will this still matter later? Inner strength expresses itself as patience under pressure. When others panic, you pause. When others rush, you refine. When others quit, you continue. This alone creates an almost unfair advantage, because most competition eliminates itself emotionally long before it is defeated strategically. Online earning at this stage becomes deeply personal, not because it is emotional, but because it reflects your values. You choose what to build based on alignment, not desperation. You choose how to work based on sustainability, not exhaustion. You choose growth that preserves clarity rather than chaos. The silence you cultivate becomes your edge. While others broadcast insecurity, you transmit certainty. While others explain too much, you execute. While others look outward for permission, you look inward for alignment. This silence is not emptiness, it is presence. It is the still water that reflects truth clearly. And in this stillness, you recognize something essential. Success was never about proving anything to anyone. It was about becoming someone you respect, someone who does not betray their own discipline, someone who can be trusted with freedom. Because freedom without self-mastery becomes a prison of distraction. As you continue forward, the work becomes simpler but not easier. Simpler because you know what matters. Harder because you are now accountable to your own standard, not external pressure. This is the final refinement before mastery. Ahead lies the convergence point, where inner discipline and external results fully align, where income is no longer fragile, where systems sustain themselves, where effort is focused, not frantic, where you no longer wonder if it will work because you understand why it works. This is the calm before permanence, the quiet space where transformation completes itself and prepares to be expressed outwardly. And in this quiet space, something profound settles into place. You begin to feel the weight of your own responsibility, not as a burden, but as authority. Authority over your time, authority over your attention, authority over the direction of your life. This is the moment where many unknowingly step back because true control is intimidating. There is no one left to blame, no system to curse, no external villain. There is only you and the standards you are now capable of holding. Online earning exposes this faster than most paths because it removes many excuses. There is no boss watching you, no fixed schedule forcing compliance, no immediate punishment for inconsistency, and that freedom reveals character. The calm mind understands this and treats freedom with reverence. It builds structure voluntarily. It creates rules where none are imposed. It understands that without self-imposed order, freedom collapses into distraction. This is where self-mastery stops being an idea and becomes a daily practice. You wake up with intention, not urgency. You work from priority, not impulse. You rest without guilt because your effort is focused. You move through days with a sense of internal alignment that no external metric can provide. Income grows not because you are chasing it, but because your behavior makes growth unavoidable. You now see clearly why so many people hover near success but never stabilize it. They taste momentum but cannot hold it. They experience income spikes but cannot repeat them. Their inner world is too volatile to sustain what their outer world briefly delivers. Calm minds are different. They are containers. They can hold growth without leaking energy through ego, fear, or excess. At this level, your relationship with desire becomes refined to the point of elegance. You want deeply, but you are not controlled by wanting. You aim high, but you move patiently. You are ambitious, but you are not frantic. This balance creates a psychological posture that is extremely rare and incredibly powerful. It allows you to operate in environments of uncertainty without losing clarity. You begin to sense the deeper metaphysical law at work. Reality responds to coherence. When thoughts, actions, and identity align, resistance dissolves. Effort produces disproportionate results. Small moves create large shifts. This is not magic. It is alignment expressed over time. The Internet, with all its noise and volatility, becomes surprisingly predictable when approached from this state. Your focus sharpens further. You no longer consume information compulsively. You consume selectively. You are no longer impressed by complexity. You seek simplicity that scales. You measure progress not by activity, but by output that compounds. This discernment protects you from burnout and keeps you positioned for long-term leverage. There is
Also a quiet humility that emerges. Not the humility of self-doubt, but the humility of realism. You understand that you are part of a larger system, that growth takes time, that mastery is never finished. This humility keeps you learning without becoming insecure. It keeps you confident without becoming rigid. The psychology of success reveals one final truth here. The people who build massive, lasting online income are not addicted to results. They are devoted to process. Results are welcomed, but they are not worshipped. Process is honored daily, and over time, that devotion builds something far more valuable than money alone. It builds self-trust. Self-trust changes everything. With it, decisions become faster. Fear loses leverage. Doubt becomes information instead of paralysis. You stop asking whether you are capable and start asking how to execute more cleanly. This shift marks the transition from seeker to operator. You are now standing at the edge of permanence, the point where systems stabilize, where income smooths out, where effort is no longer frantic but precise, where the external world finally reflects the internal order you have built patiently, quietly, relentlessly. What remains is not more motivation, but commitment, not more information, but application, not more desire, but discipline sustained over time. And as this chapter draws closer to its convergence, understand this clearly. You were never meant to hustle forever. You were meant to master yourself so thoroughly that effort becomes leverage and discipline becomes freedom. What comes next is not another tactic. It is the final embodiment of everything you have absorbed, the moment where you stop listening and start living this philosophy fully, the moment where calm is no longer something you practice, but something you are. And when calm becomes who you are, the world begins to meet you differently. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, almost respectfully. Opportunities stop knocking with chaos and start arriving with clarity. Conversations become shorter but more meaningful. Decisions become fewer but more impactful. You are no longer pulled in 10 directions because your inner direction is fixed. This is where the final illusion dissolves, the belief that success must feel intense. Real success feels stable. It feels grounded. It feels almost ordinary from the inside, even if it looks extraordinary from the outside. The nervous system is no longer in fight or flight. It is in command. And from this state, online earning becomes something you shape, not something that shapes you. You understand now that the greatest risk was never failure. It was fragmentation, being spread so thin across desires, fears, comparisons, and impulses that nothing meaningful could take root. Calm integrated all of you into a single direction, and direction, sustained long enough, creates destiny. The systems you build now are extensions of your inner order, clean, repeatable, scalable. They do not depend on mood. They do not collapse under pressure. They are designed with patience and maintained with discipline. This is why your income no longer spikes and crashes. It stabilizes, then grows, quietly, predictably. You no longer explain yourself to people who don't understand the long game. You no longer argue with those addicted to urgency. You no longer need to prove that this works. You are living proof, and the calm confidence that comes from embodiment is more persuasive than any explanation. Time itself begins to feel different. Days are no longer rushed. Weeks are no longer wasted. Each period has intention. Each action has placement. You respect beginnings, middles, and endings. This respect compounds, because mastery is not built in moments of intensity, but in seasons of consistency. There is also a deep peace that arrives here, not complacency, peace, the peace of knowing you are aligned, the peace of trusting yourself, the peace of understanding that even setbacks are part of the structure, not signs to abandon it. This peace makes you resilient. And resilience, more than talent or intelligence, is what keeps people in the game long enough to win it. Online earning was never separate from personal evolution. It was the training ground. It forced you to confront impatience, insecurity, distraction, and doubt. It demanded that you grow into someone capable of holding freedom without destroying it. And you answered that demand, not with noise, but with discipline. Now the responsibility is clear, to continue living from this center, to protect this calm, to refuse regression into chaos even when the world encourages it, to build not endlessly but intentionally, to grow not recklessly but sustainably. You have crossed the invisible line, the one most people never see, let alone cross, from seeking to becoming, from reacting to directing, from wishing to embodying. What remains is simple but not easy, to keep choosing clarity over comfort, discipline over impulse, vision over distraction, every day, quietly, relentlessly. Because this is the final truth of online earning and of mastery itself. When the mind is calm, the system grows. When the system grows, freedom follows, and when freedom is held by someone disciplined enough to deserve it, it lasts. And now you stand in the place few ever reach, not because it is hidden, but because it requires something most are unwilling to give,
sustained inner order. There is no applause here, no dramatic soundtrack, just a quiet awareness that you are no longer drifting, you are steering. This is where many stories would end, but this is where real ones begin. Because mastery is not a destination you arrive at and celebrate, it is a standard you maintain, a posture you return to daily, a choice you reaffirm when distractions tempt you back into noise. The calm you've cultivated must be protected, not passively, but deliberately. The world will test it. Success will test it more than failure ever could. Money will test it. Attention will test it. Comfort will test it. Each new level brings subtler threats. The obvious chaos is gone now. What remains are refined distractions that look reasonable, even productive. This is why vigilance matters. Calm is not fragile, but it is precious. It is the source of your leverage. You no longer need to chase growth aggressively. Growth responds to your consistency. You no longer need to convince yourself this works. You understand why it works. And understanding creates composure. Composure creates endurance. Endurance creates inevitability. Online earning at its highest expression becomes an act of stewardship. You steward your time. You steward your energy. You steward your attention. You steward the systems you've built. You respect them enough to maintain them even when you could coast. This respect keeps decay away. And here is the final realization, the one that ties everything together. You were never building income just to earn money. You were building income to buy back sovereignty, to live without constant urgency, to think without pressure, to create without fear, to choose without constraint. Money was simply the instrument. Self-mastery was the goal. So now the responsibility is yours, to live this quietly, to execute this daily, to refuse the temptation to return to chaos even when chaos looks exciting, to build not endlessly but intentionally, to grow not recklessly but sustainably. Do not rush this. Do not dramatize it. Do not dilute it. Just live it. And if you do, if you protect this calm, honor this discipline, and act from this centered identity, then online income will no longer be something you pursue. It will be something that follows you naturally, steadily, and sustainably as a reflection of who you have chosen to become. This is not the end. This is the standard. And holding this standard is where everything quietly consolidates. No fireworks, no sudden transformation visible to the outside world, just a deep internal locking in, like a structure finally settling onto bedrock. You feel it in how you move through the day, in how decisions no longer drain you, in how you are no longer seduced by urgency, even when urgency wears the mask of opportunity. You have learned something most never do, that calm is not the absence of ambition, but the refinement of it. Ambition, when undisciplined, scatters energy. Ambition, when mastered, becomes direction. Fire contained within structure becomes power. Fire without structure becomes destruction. The online world is filled with burned-out ambition. You chose containment. This is why your work now carries
a different frequency. It is not rushed, it is not bloated, it is intentional. Each action serves a purpose beyond immediate reward. You are building with awareness of second-order effects, of long-term consequences, of sustainability. This depth of thinking places you in a different category entirely. You also understand now that control does not mean rigidity. It means responsiveness without panic. You can adapt quickly because you are not emotionally attached to being right. You can change course without losing momentum because your identity is not fused to a single tactic. You are anchored to principles, not methods. Methods evolve, principles endure. The metaphysical law underlying all of this is simple and unforgiving.
What you practice becomes your nature. You practiced patience, you practiced restraint, you practiced consistency, and so patience, restraint, and consistency became you. From this identity, income is no longer a question of if, but how cleanly it flows. You are no longer trying to outwork everyone. You are outlasting them. You are no longer trying to be everywhere. You are positioned exactly where you need to be. This economy does not reward the most frantic. It rewards the most coherent. And coherence comes from inner alignment. There is also a quiet courage that has formed, the courage to say no, to ignore trends that do not fit your system, to let others rush ahead temporarily while you fortify foundations. This courage protects you from dilution. It keeps your signal strong. You begin to see how rare this state truly is, how few people are willing to delay gratification without resentment, how few can sit in silence without reaching for distraction, how few can build without constant reassurance, and because it is rare, it is valuable, extremely valuable. Online earning becomes almost secondary now, not unimportant, but contextualized. It is part of a larger life architecture you are designing, one where time is respected, where energy is protected, where growth is intentional. This is why your systems no longer feel fragile. They are integrated into who you are. And here is the final internal shift before everything external aligns fully. You stop asking what more you need to learn and start asking how well you are embodying what you already know. This question sharpens execution instantly. It removes procrastination disguised as preparation. It brings you fully into action. You realize that mastery is not built by accumulation, but by elimination, eliminating distraction, eliminating excess, eliminating emotional noise, until what remains is simple, clear, and powerful. From this place, every action carries weight, every decision compounds, every day builds momentum quietly beneath the surface, and when results arrive, as they always do for those who endure, they arrive as confirmation, not surprise. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are no longer waiting for certainty. You are no longer waiting for the right moment. You are the moment. And being the moment means you no longer live in anticipation of a future that will finally allow you to begin. You are already in motion, already aligned, already executing from a place of inner authority. This is the subtle power most people misunderstand. They think transformation announces itself loudly. In truth, it arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, and then it never leaves. You feel it in how resistance no longer paralyzes you. When discomfort appears, it no longer feels like a signal to stop, but a signal to stabilize. You don't rush to escape it. You stay present. You let it sharpen you. This is emotional discipline in its purest form, the ability to remain centered while pressure applies itself from every direction. Online earning, when approached from this state, stops feeling unpredictable. You begin to sense cycles, attention cycles, market cycles, personal energy cycles. You stop forcing output during low clarity and stop wasting high clarity on trivial tasks. This timing alone multiplies effectiveness without increasing effort. You are no longer grinding, you are orchestrating. The inner dialogue has changed too. There is less negotiation, less internal debate, less drama. You no longer ask yourself whether you feel like doing the work. You ask whether the work aligns with the standard you've chosen. That question simplifies everything. Feelings become background noise. Standards become the signal. This is the ancient art of self-control expressed in a modern arena. Not suppression of emotion, but mastery over response. You still feel desire, you still feel doubt, you still feel fatigue, but they no longer sit in the driver's seat. They ride quietly in the back, while direction remains fixed. You also notice how your relationship with silence has transformed. Silence no longer feels empty, it feels rich. It becomes a space for integration, for insight, for recalibration. While others constantly consume, you allow your mind to consolidate. This consolidation creates depth. Depth creates originality. Originality creates value. The psychology of success reveals another layer here. People who fail repeatedly often do not lack effort, they lack patience with themselves. They expect internal change to be instant. You allowed it to be gradual. You allowed repetition to do its work. You allowed identity to shift naturally through behavior, not force. This patience made you durable, durable enough to withstand boredom, durable enough to withstand slow periods, durable enough to withstand success without losing yourself. Durability is rarely celebrated, but it is the trait that carries people through decades, not months. Online income built from this foundation does not disappear overnight. It does not rely on constant reinvention. It evolves slowly, intelligently, in response to real signals rather than emotional reactions. This is why calm builders remain relevant while others burn bright and vanish. You are now operating from an internal economy that is balanced. Input and output are measured. Rest and effort are respected. Learning and execution are integrated. There is no longer a sense of chasing. There is a sense of unfolding. And unfolding requires trust, not blind trust in outcomes, but trust in process, trust in your ability to adjust, trust in your discipline to continue, trust in your restraint to avoid sabotage. This trust stabilizes everything. The world may still be loud. Trends will still scream for attention. Others will still move erratically, chasing urgency disguised as opportunity. But you are no longer available for that frequency. You move slower, deeper, with intention. This is where quiet confidence becomes unshakable, not because you think you are above failure, but because you know you can recover from it without collapsing. That knowledge removes fear, and without fear distorting your decisions, execution becomes clean. You are no longer chasing massive online income. You are creating the conditions where it must emerge, calmly, inevitably, as a consequence of who you have become. And as this truth settles in, you realize something profound. The external world, its volatility, its trends, its noise, does not control you anymore. It never did. What controls your results is the internal world you have built, the systems you uphold, the standards you maintain, the calm discipline you carry into every action. This internal authority transforms how you perceive opportunity. You no longer flinch at shifts in attention or markets. You do not chase every new trend. You wait for the moments that align with your strategy. You position yourself where leverage exists and avoid chaos disguised as promise. Your patience is not passive, it is strategic. It waits, observes, and then acts with precision. Desire now feels like a tool, not a tyrant. Ambition moves through you with intention rather than impulse. Every project you touch has clarity behind it. Every product, every piece of content, every funnel is a deliberate choice, not a reaction. You operate like a sculptor, not a gambler, carving your system until it stands on its own. The nervous system, once reactive, now functions as an instrument of precision. Fear is information, not command. Excitement is fuel, not distraction. Motivation is optional. Commitment is automatic. And in this state, work feels inevitable, not forced. Execution becomes effortless because you are no longer fighting your own mind. You begin to notice compounding not just in numbers, but in identity. Every day you uphold standards, your confidence grows. Every time you resist impulsive action, your judgment sharpens. Every time you repeat the process with patience, your nervous system becomes stronger. This compounding is invisible at first, but unstoppable over time. The internet itself seems to respond differently. Opportunities align.
Audiences trust, platforms reward, not because of luck, but because coherence creates gravity.
Carries a different kind of power. Calm, aligned energy attracts results that frantic energy cannot. Systems scale effortlessly when the operator is stable. Chaos cannot replicate this. You also understand the rare value of boredom and monotony. While others flee, you remain. You embrace repetition as the crucible where mastery forms. Small improvements, compounded consistently, produce outcomes far beyond what impatience could ever achieve. Your calmness allows these improvements to accumulate silently, invisibly, inevitably. At this stage, online earning is no longer transactional. It becomes expressive. Each action communicates your identity. Disciplined, patient, precise, intentional. The systems you create reflect who you are internally. Money becomes the echo of your mastery, not the center of your attention. And so the final lesson emerges. You were never meant to chase. You were meant to become, to shape yourself into someone who naturally generates the results others spend a lifetime hunting, to embody the calm, deliberate, strategic posture that transforms effort into leverage and time into unstoppable growth. Now the only remaining task is to live from this place daily, to honor the process, maintain the calm, and execute with relentless precision. Because everything you desire, income, freedom, influence, does not come from luck, hype, or fleeting motivation. It comes from becoming the operator capable of holding it. And this is the point where you step fully into your power, where silence becomes force, and where the calm mind quietly builds income that lasts. The journey has not ended. It has only reached the stage where mastery manifests itself through every action, every system, every choice. And if you commit to this fully, what you will build is unstoppable. This is the culmination of all that discipline, patience, and internal refinement, the moment where philosophy meets execution and where quiet mastery transforms into real, measurable results. Now is the time to act, not with haste, but with unwavering alignment. Your calm mind is your ultimate leverage. Your discipline is your greatest asset. Your transformation is inevitable if you honor the path you have chosen.